Hi, Heather.
Hey, Pegster.
It's been a week. You ever had one of those weeks where all the little technical ankle biters, like something's not working and then you're trying to get it to work? What did we do without it before it even existed?
I discovered something new about myself. I really try to practice and live a life where I don't harm others. I try to, like, especially people in service positions. I want to be very kind to people behind a desk or counter. But when it comes to technology issues and I'm on a phone line and I'm talking to a computer and the computer's asking me millions of things and it keeps saying, I would like to give you customer service, but can you tell me a little bit more what's going on? I find myself screeching. I just want to talk to a human being. I've worked myself up and I'm so angry at the
Mm.
same time. It's an example of how we harm ourselves. This is not a real thing I'm yelling at, but I'm harming my own body by getting
Getting,
so aggravated by these technology glitches.
and that's what recovery has taught me in terms of looking within to determine why I'm having these feelings. If it's anger or sadness, which is usually underneath those is fear or grief for me. If I'm getting angry or irritated, it's feeling out of control. Like I'm not able to control these moving parts in my life. And at the time, while I'm sitting in front of a computer and doing my work, it's been an education process and a lesson in patience for sure. And I'm grateful for it. It's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. So that's what my week's been like. Anyway, we wanted to share today about our experience around healthy relationships and how we've learned to cultivate healthy relationships and boundaries after recovery. And within all that, we learn to navigate personalities. And when someone has bothered me for whatever reason, I also have to look at, why am I having these feelings? Why am I irritated? Why do I feel hurt? Why am I taking this personally? And that was a big part of my narrative when I was active in my addiction. And I had no idea how uneducated I was around dealing with other human beings without it meaning something about me or making it about me. I think the relationship piece, because they say it can be a disease of relationships, and I have found that to be true. Because once I got to learn more about myself, then I could see how I was interacting with other people and where my strengths were and where I needed to work on my people skills.
Something that you said right from the beginning is that one of the things we have to do, which I believe is part of the healing process, is that we need to learn to stop looking out at others or situations um, and blaming those things for whatever's going on inside of me. Instead, what recovery teaches you is like, wait a minute, I need to stop. Just like you said, I need to look at myself. Why am I having this reaction? Or even like, why am I picking these people, this kind of person again and again? I think what's really amazing is this journey of self-study where you start to observe all the patterns you have and the patterns of boundarylessness that I have had with people. I kind of joke about this. We talked about it in the rooms, the idea that we didn't have friends, we took hostages. When you break that apart, it's like, what does that really mean when somebody says that? I was probably very controlling, I was very bossy and very loud, and I was a lot of fun. But I do know that if you made me grumpy or did something I didn't like, it would
Mm.
go so black on white on you. It would be all or nothing. There would be no gray. I wouldn't even look at the part like maybe they're having a bad day or maybe there's something else going on. No, it was always about me. You were doing this to me and I'm going to shut you down or shut you out. And so once we get into this letting go of our strategies of addiction and having to really start to find other ways to regulate ourselves, we have to start to shift the way we take care of ourselves because, when I'm yelling at an AI person and my blood pressure is going up, I'm frothing at the mouth. And I'm doing this with a computer generated voice.
Hmm.
I have to stop myself. I start to rev up and I go, wait a minute, stop, breathe, get yourself back. It's a waste of my time and I'm harming myself. It's the same thing when we have people. One of the things that started to happen, I don't know if this happened to you, but I remember I was a year sober and I was out in California and visiting my brother. He did not understand at all. He just thought I was taking a break from drinking. And he was like, a year sober, let's celebrate. So he slid a shot of bourbon, a Jack Daniels across the table to me. And I was like, "Oh, okay." The brother doesn't get it. And I was like, "No, I can't." And it was so great to be able to just say, "I will not be able to drink one day at a time. I'm not gonna drink anymore. I've chosen this. I'm 1 year into it, and I don't wanna go back to living like that." When we first start this journey of sobriety, we have to be very careful to not go back to the places, spaces, and people we used to party with. We had to shift that around. I'll never forget that I had a friend that was wanting to go out with me, and I said, "Well, I'm not drinking." She said, "Well, is that just tonight?" I said, "No, I'm not drinking anymore." She goes, "Well, you're no fun. You're not going to be any fun."
Thank you for sharing that. I really wanted to make friends. I had never really had healthy relationship skills modeled for me. I had to learn them on my own. When I first started drinking, I felt very much at ease in my skin in a way that I had not felt at ease before. And I felt like I could really interact with people and I was speaking intelligently and not so self consciously. And that false bravery or that liquid courage, whatever it is,
Right.
that's what I felt. Alcohol, that was my drug of choice. When it hit my system, I didn't understand this phenomenon of craving. I would feel this craving when I drank and I would want more. I liked the feeling it gave me, that it gave me this ability to interact with people on what I thought was a rational level. It really wasn't. And the people that I surrounded myself with did the same thing I was doing. I couldn't imagine being with someone who didn't drink. I wouldn't have made them a real close ally because I wouldn't trust them. Like, why aren't they drinking? It would make me look at my own patterns as well. When I decided to get sober, I knew that I had to walk away from this group of friends that I had known for a long time. That was hard. And I felt even lonelier than before I started drinking. And I was in that hallway where I was leaving one room and ready to enter another. I'm knocking on every door as I'm going up and down the hallway, and none of them are opening up except one. When I walked through it, I met this new energy of healthier people, and I really didn't know how to talk with them. But I felt this level of authenticity that I hadn't felt before. I was feeling very intimidated, like I wasn't going to measure up. The beauty of the friends I'd met at that time and still have to this day was that they just loved me for me and wanted me to stop hurting myself. That's all they wanted. They didn't want anything else. And that was new as well. And it was hard. I don't like letting go of anything, even if it's hurting me. There's this feeling of, what will I be if I let this go? Thankfully, people saw me, even if I couldn't. When I got sober, people saw the beauty within me and helped me start seeing it. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. People like you, friends like you, colleagues, and people that have walked this path for a long time. I still have challenges with relationships, picking people that I think are the perfect match. They're not. I don't realize that until I'm well into it. And I really attract emotionally unavailable people. That's what feels safe. That is the healing that comes after recovery, really learning or healing in those deeper layers. I like to lean in the direction of dysfunction at times and not always recognize it for what it is. That has been a realization I've been working on even the last few years, well into sobriety. The beauty of it is being free of the chains of my addiction and feel free and have some measure of peace and be able to relate to other human beings and understand my own patterns.
The thing is, we start to learn about these patterns, and then a lot of us go see a professional and work on these patterns. There's never this like one thing fits. This is the answer. I mean, it's very eclectic, this journey of recovery. Many times I've had to step back into therapy and work on these patterns. Like, why do I keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results? It is the insanity. And oftentimes, and in my own journey, I've done a lot of studying around this. It's how we've been attached early on. Those imprints carry on into our adult relationships, especially our romantic relationships.
Mhm.
One of the first things I needed to do was to create safety in my life when I was trying to be sober. I couldn't go to the same places, and I tried to hang out with the same people and do different things. And honestly, when I look back, it kind of worked for a while, but it didn't. One of the first places I had to address was my own home. And bless my husband, he's not like me. I did ask, as far as boundaries go, I don't want alcohol in front of me. I don't want it on the table. I don't want it in the fridge. They're just things that I asked for to protect me. And he, of course, was willing to do whatever it took to help me with that. But I think I had this thought, it would be so much easier if he would just quit drinking with me. And I got really focused on that. I was like, what if you just quit? It would just make my life so much better because it just doesn't work like that. But anyway, so that's a whole nother story. We can talk about our relationships with our people, our closest relationships, and that's a journey, right? But when it comes to friendships, I think one of the things that was really interesting is I started, and we might have mentioned this before, maybe in one of these talks, just how not having any social skills, that the only social skills I had developed were ones under the influence of alcohol. And to now have that removed, I really didn't know how to socialize that well. I was very uncomfortable in my own skin and being around people. I didn't know what kind of conversations to have. I just and I was told, go to as many gatherings as you can. And it seemed at the time when I was getting sober, a lot of us had young kids and we're at home with our kids, which was a real blessing. But a lot of people got into these pyramid things like Pampered Chefs, different types of Tupperware, and they'd have these parties and we'd go. The thing then was like, I think this is so funny because you're always learning more about yourself. I'm not going to spend money because I'm not going to buy anything. And then everybody's like, you got to buy something when you go to these things at people's houses. Like, why do I have to buy anything? I'm going to be authentic to myself. And I would do that. And I feel so proud of myself. But it's just funny how we have to keep trying to learn who we are because I would buy everything because to go on to anyway, that was one of the ways I learned how to really develop friendships with people and got to see them in different scenarios and got to really get to know people in a different way. And I was gauging, were they in my life to just dump on me and take from me and use? Because that's something that one of the first things that was told to me, we don't use anymore. We don't use people, places, and things. And so I wanted to get out of the frequency of using, and I needed to really have discernment with the people that I was allowing to be close to me.
Right.
And you get, yeah.
I think my friendships that I have let into my life and into my heart have shown me how to be not afraid of intimacy and have shown me that it's safe to be vulnerable. And that was not something I grew up with. That was not a message that resonated in my family at all. And that was something that didn't feel safe to be vulnerable. I had this very thick armor around my heart, and I was not very trusting. And I would say that trust is not a natural default for me when I meet new people, but I give much more benefit of the doubt than I used to. My friendships really have shown me how to be a friend, show up for people, be there when they're in pain, not try and fix it, but hold that space with them. And that was not in my I was not of that frequency in any way, shape, or form because I didn't know how to do it. How could I hold a space for you if I couldn't do it for myself? If I didn't allow it? Allowing it helped me to learn about myself and also be able to sit with friends and acquaintances that are in pain and let them be what they need to be at that moment and just be there and not try and fix it. That was the other thing, the people pleasing. I really had to watch that. And my motivations behind helping anybody. I love to care for people. And I've had to look at my motivation behind wanting to do this one thing for this friend. Is it because if I do it, they'll owe me something, or they will love me, or they won't leave me? And that was my narrative growing up and well into my adulthood. If I do all these things for you, you won't leave me. And that's not how it works. But I didn't know that because it was very much a part of my strategy of trying to not be left alone. Today, that isn't as much of a narrative for me anymore. I have to look behind the motivation for wanting to help someone. Is it just to be there and not expect anything and not try and fix it because their feelings are making me scared? I can have my fear and take care of myself and still be with them. And that was a huge lesson that I learned from friendship. I don't know that we can really talk about relationships without going into romantic or special relationships. I found that I was triggered in ways within those special relationships that I was not triggered in my friendships. And that was something I had to learn. What's going on? What is it about these types of relationships versus a friendship that's triggering me? Because I'm the one being triggered. And I had to get extra help to learn more about my relationships, what I was drawn to, why I was drawn to them. It felt normal. It felt like love. Someone who was emotionally distant felt like love. Even though I felt really unfulfilled and unhappy, I felt safe because it was familiar until it wasn't anymore. The beauty of getting outside help is that you start to see your own patterns if you're willing to look at them.
Something came into my mind, and I think I'll just sum it up like this. I wouldn't say I knew this a while ago, only I think I'm coming to this understanding now after decades of recovery. I want to surround myself with people who are working just as hard as I am on becoming the best version of themselves.
Mm,
I just don't have energy to have anybody close to me that is addicted to drama and chaos. I'm just saying there's people that happens in their lives and they're really decent, good people, and it's not their fault. But when I see the poor choices they're making over and over again, when I'm saying to somebody, and here's the thing, if somebody asks me, I will tell them. I used to be one to tell you what to do because then I had to work on that. When I'm asked, and I have been asked by some of these friends, do you think I need therapy? And I try not to get really like, hell yes. I just go, I think it would probably be a really good thing. But inside I'm like, it's you need therapy. Please get therapy because you know what? I'm not close to you anymore. I just can't, I don't have the energy to watch the self-destruction.
mm,
That is hard to see. Self-destruction comes with this disease. I could just eliminate the alcohol and keep being self-destructive in other ways, keep doing things that create the shame, guilt, or remorse of addiction. I can just go out and spend a bunch of money or eat a bunch of M&Ms. You know, these are the different ways that the self-destruction can come about. I'm working very hard on not taking care of myself like that. And I want somebody else who isn't close to me to be doing the same thing. I'll be honest with you, Peg. My closest friends, all of them are in recovery and work very hard, are continually to grow, continually to learn more things about themselves. I may have one or two people outside of recovery that I have close to me, but that is it. It is a small circle now. And I
Mhm.
have different tiers. I have the close circle, and then I have another tier and another tier of people. But yes, these boundaries, I know, like the boundaries are what they say are boundaries of steel. We have to have boundaries of steel with people, to
Yes.
take care of ourselves.
And
Takes a lot of courage to have boundaries of steel. I think Brene Brown said that.
some people in our lives just won't like it because it hasn't been our way of being with them. I would set a boundary and let you trample all over it. That was something I had to unlearn. I had to have enough respect for myself to set those boundaries. And that was, for me, a way to see how respected I was from the person I was with. They weren't able to respect that boundary. That was a huge red flag. I didn't look for that before until I became more self-aware and healthier. I have a lot more work to do, and I've come a long way as you have. And I'm able to see what doesn't feel right for me today and trust my intuition. And that was the other thing I would override is intuition. If all kinds of bells and whistles were going off in my head, I'd be like, yeah, but they're so cute. And I would talk myself into it with being with a person that who they were just who they were. And I spent so much time trying to change someone into being something I needed them to be when they weren't capable of it. They showed me that, and I didn't want to see it. I am so grateful to them for that because they were teachers. They were teachers for me and showed me where I needed to do some work and where I was wounded because they were able to point to those wounds very quickly. That wasn't fun. I realized why I worked so hard to try and mold the, what did Marianne Williamson once say? You have your frame and you want to put that person in this frame, in this picture that you've created for them that they don't really want any part of. They don't either want it or they just can't do it. I was so tied to that fantasy of my happily ever after, I was not able to see things. And I don't have any, I love that woman that was me back then. I love her. I love the mistakes that she made. I love the fact that she had the courage to get sober, to set boundaries, and to walk away from unhealthy relationships and allow them to walk away from me. I love her because she's the one who got me here, where I am today. So when I look back at all the versions of me in the past, I love every single version because that is exactly what I needed to self-actuate and learn the deeper levels of love for myself, for you. And I don't think I would have been able to learn certain lessons in any other way by any other people. This divine order, I can't always see it at the time. I can always see it looking backwards. And I'm like, well, of course it worked out that way. And I'm so glad that it did, even though at the time I wanted it to be different.
I love that part of the journey is when you're in it. When I'm in it now, and I feel so awful, like I'm losing a friendship with somebody, and I just did not too long ago. When I was in it, I was like, "What's happening? What did I do?" And when I started to do an inventory of my part, I looked at the whole relationship, and it ended. Now I can look back as time goes on. When I'm in it, it's hard, but I did say to myself when I was in it, one day you're going to know why this ended and it's going to make sense to you. One day you're going to understand why this job ended. It's going to make sense to you. And I have that faith now that it will get revealed to me somehow, hopefully in this lifetime. And I also accept it may not be. For the most part, I always like, thank you so much. That person's out of my life, or thank you so much that I lost that job. Another thing I was thinking about when you were talking, Peg, is that I think the first steps of the journey is to start to nurture this relationship with yourself, right? We don't even really know who we are. I didn't know who I was. I had all these labels, all these names. Heather was this, Heather was that. but I really didn't know what my values were. I didn't even know what I was thought was important in a relationship because I was kind of like a chameleon. I kind of like changed colors with each person I was at because I was a military kid and I lived all over the place. The only way I was going to adapt was to become like them so that I could be a part of them. And that's kind of how I roll. But what I began to realize is that I needed to discover my own core values. And one of the most important values that I have gotten in recovery is the value of being honest.
Mhm.
And this is where it seems to be the dividing line in people that are close to me. If they can't be honest, one, with themselves, because that's what I see a lot is the lying that people and the denying that people do with themselves, especially if they have their own destructive habits. If they can't look at that and really be honest about that, I can't be close to them. And so this honesty thing is probably one of the most valuable characteristics that I look for in people who are so rigorously honest and they're so transparent and they can communicate directly with me, not indirectly behind my back. They're just things that I have learned and I place value on and what I look for in relationships.
Mhm. Absolutely. I learned one of my most important values is connection and, of course, honesty. What's ironic is that I would attract people that weren't capable of truly connecting with me, and I really wasn't able to connect with them. Hence came the loneliness and the unfulfillment, not feeling fulfilled, even though I thought this was what I wanted. And the same was true for work. I would follow a career path that I thought I was supposed to be on because it looked good. And everything was these external approval levers that I was looking for. And I would look at my friends at work and lovers and partners. And if I didn't get the approval I needed, and it was a bottomless pit. Because if I don't believe it, doesn't matter how many times you tell me, it's not going to be enough ever, 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 ever. And I have learned, and this has been a huge shift to cultivate and fill that emptiness with things that are not of this world, a connection with a higher power, learning to connect with myself and feel this level of love and feeling full and loving my life today. I love having this connection with this higher power that I call God, knowing that no matter what, I'll never be alone because of this connection that has been with me from well before I was born and will be with me well after I'm not on this planet anymore. That has really brought this level of fulfillment to me that I always drank after. I always drank destructively to find that sense of worthiness and a feeling that I was enough. And it never worked. Learning to find that within myself and cultivate that self love helped me to not feel like I had to people please in order to get friendships. I had to allow my boundaries to get trampled all over by lovers and partners. I was able to let that go because I learned self respect. For me, that has been one of the greatest challenges. Um, Stopping drinking was almost the easiest part. It's been learning how to walk this path with integrity and surround myself with people that reflect back to me this self love that they have within themselves. And they've taught me how to live life one day at a time with grace, even with the ankle biters, that we'll get through it. And this will make me better. And I love that sense of being enough today. I don't feel the need to have to pull it out of you or pull it out of work or pull it out of my bank account. I want all those things in healthy measures, but they're not my masters anymore. I don't feel the need to pull. I want to give and do so without any intention of wanting anything in return. And that's why I always look at motivations, because people pleasing was and can still be a way of being for me. And everything's on a spectrum, right? With one being fantastic and 10 being, wow, I'm really still mired in this. I was probably an 8 and 9, and it's moved down to maybe a 3 or 4. And it keeps moving. It's a continuum, right? It's not a black and white thing. And that's how I have to look at progress.
Hey, just that statement that you said about quitting drinking was the easy part. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with drinking, trust me, it was not easy stopping drinking. I think we're trying to say to you is if you really want to do it right and really experience all the joy and the freedom of living an authentic life of self-love, self-care, but also of service, it is all part of the journey. Oftentimes, if you just quit drinking and that's it, unfortunately, you're still the same person who's going to drink again. I remember that the drinking was really painful because in my mind, I thought I'm never going to have fun again.
I honestly was relieved when I stopped drinking because it had been
Me
such
too.
a battle. It was a battle I waged with myself for so long. I'm not minimizing how difficult it is to give up what has been a huge coping mechanism, was for me. It's the subsequent lessons through life and through the learnings and what I learned about myself that as far as it relates to other relationships, that has been a harder path for me. Drinking is but a symptom. And so I had to get to the causes and conditions. I had to stop drinking, and it always begins and ends with not picking up. Because then for me, all bets are off. And so that extra work, the learning, being willing to learn and make mistakes and learning how to be in healthy relationships and have a healthy relationship with myself, that has been a difficult journey for me. But it wasn't going to be possible if I continued in my addiction.
I remember a therapist saying to me that you're not going to ever actualize your potential, Heather, until you put the plug in the jug. That's
Mhm.
the way she put it. I had no idea by that one act of stopping drinking could so profoundly change the trajectory of my life and also to be living in such a freedom and such a joy and happiness. It's just amazing that I can wake up and not go, what did I do? Where was I? Who did I hit?
Mm.
That I can now wake up and go, thank you. Let me be of service today. Let me do what I can to make the world a better place. And that means taking care of me first. Then I can be out there in the world for you. I love this journey and I'm so grateful, Peg, for you. Oh my
Same.
gosh. I remember meeting you, I don't know how many years ago it was, at one of those parties.
It was a cheese party.
It was a cheese
Ours
party.
was having a cheese party, and my contribution to the cheese party, which she was absolutely annoyed by, was I brought Cheese Whiz.
You
I love
did.
Cheese Whiz. This was like a bougie cheese party.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to bring some Cheese Whiz and see how the hostess deals with
Did you bring Triscuits
it.
too?
Yeah. I know.
But
It wasn't even that. It was like, what were those round crackers that we used to?
Ritz,
Yes,
Ritz,
Ritz.
crackers.
Ritz crackers.
Remember sitting there talking to you. And at this point, I was really talkative. I was shy for many years, and now I'm just big blabbermouth, blah, blah, blah. And it's so amazing how everything just changes. All you got to do is just make that commitment one day at a time, one breath at a time. I am going to change my life today, this moment, by this one very self-destructive thing that, and I was told, let go of the things in the order that they'll kill you. And alcohol is going to kill you pretty
Yes,
fast.
no question about it. The feeling of being enough today has made all the difference in the quality of my life. Even when I am alone, I don't feel alone, because even when I was drinking, I could be in a room full of people and felt very lonely. I don't feel that today, and there's this freedom, sense of peace, and even some joy sprinkled in that makes life really Pretty awesome.
We do this together.
We do this together.
We do this together.
Thank you. And I love you. Have a wonderful week.